On the night of March the 29th, 1848, the people living beside Niagara Falls were woken by something they had never experienced. Silence. Not quiet, silence. The falls had been roaring in their ears every hour of every day of their entire lives. And now there was nothing. They went outside in their nightclothes and looked at the greatest waterfall in North America. It was gone. By dawn, the riverbed was dry enough to walk on. Bare rock, pools, and stranded fish flapping where 150,000 tons of water a minute used to fall. Mills along the river stopped. The water wheels had nothing to turn. Machinery that had run for decades simply halted mid-stroke, and a very large number of people concluded that the world was ending. Churches on both the American and the Canadian side filled up. There were special services. There was praying. There was, by several accounts, a good deal of weeping. Others had a completely different reaction. They went shopping. The dry riverbed was, after all, the floor of a river that had been swallowing things for a very long time. People walked out onto it and started collecting. Muskets, bayonets, tomahawks, relics of the War of 1812, dropped in the river decades earlier and never seen again. A cavalry troop from Fort Niagara rode their horses up and down the empty riverbed, because when else would anyone ever get to do that? Someone drove a horse and carriage across the bed of the Niagara River. Someone else set up a table and had a meal on it. Workmen took the opportunity to blast loose rock away from the riverbed near the shore, a job that was normally impossible and now merely convenient. There was, of course, an explanation, and it was sitting 20 miles upstream. Lake Erie had been frozen all winter. On the 29th of March, a strong wind broke the ice up and pushed the whole shattered field toward the mouth of the Niagara River. The river's entrance is narrow. The ice arrived, jammed, and locked itself into a dam across the head of the river. Behind the jam, the water backed up into the lake. In front of it, the river simply ran itself empty, and the falls went quiet. It held for roughly 30 to 40 hours. Then the wind shifted, the ice broke apart, and the river came back. Witnesses described a wall of water arriving down the gorge with a roar, and the falls restarting as if nothing had happened. It has never been documented happening again. One night in 1848, and never since. Which brings us to the far stranger part of this story, because 121 years later, it happened again. And this time, somebody did it deliberately. In 1969, the American Falls had a problem. A vast heap of broken rock had piled up at its base from a series of collapses. The concern was that the American Falls was slowly turning from a waterfall into a rapid running down a rubble slope. So the United States Army Corps of Engineers decided to have a proper look. To have a proper look, they had to switch the waterfall off. In June, they drove hundreds of truckloads of rock and earth into the river above the falls and built a cofferdam 600 feet long. The dam pushed the entire flow of the river sideways into the Horseshoe Falls on the Canadian side. On the 12th of June, the American Falls stopped. For the second time in recorded history, people stood at the top of Niagara and looked down at bare rock. The engineers spent 5 months on the exposed rock face. They surveyed it, drilled it, bolted the loose sections, and pumped grout into the cracks. They installed instruments to measure how the cliff was moving, and they debated the central question: should the rubble at the bottom be removed? Clearing it would restore the tall, clean drop of the postcards. It would also, quite possibly, accelerate the erosion the rubble was now protecting the cliff from. After all that work, the decision was to leave it. The rubble stays. It is still there, holding up the bottom of the American Falls. And here is the detail that makes this properly peculiar. The tourists came anyway. Niagara Falls, without any water, turned out to be a genuine attraction. People drove for hours to see a waterfall that had been switched off. Viewing platforms were busy all summer. Visitors photographed a bare cliff with the same enthusiasm normally reserved for the water. On the 25th of November 1969, the cofferdam was blasted open. and the river was allowed back. A crowd came to watch that too, so Niagara Falls has stopped twice. Once because a lake threw its own ice into a doorway. Once because a government department wanted a closer look. One took 30 hours and a change in the wind. The other took 5 months, an army and 600 feet of rock. That's this week's issue of the Gazette. If today's dispatch delighted you, subscribe. History has no shortage of absurd true stories. Next issue, the 2 American states that went to war with each other, fought for a year, and managed exactly 1 stabbing. Until then, stay peculiar.